Today's topic is about how we instill drive, and you could circulate that word out with many others. But how do you instill drive in a junk removal company, specifically to get everybody focused on what I call the North Star, which is revenue? There's a lot of numbers and data points and everything that you want to track and measure within any organization, specifically junk. And those are really important for us, getting our guys, our call center, everybody looking at top line revenue and how do we increase that is really, really important to us. And the same thing with like average job size. But like, why care? If you're a truck team member, if you're a manager, if you're an ops guy or gal, if you sit in the call center, if you do bookkeeping, if you're a fractional CFO for us, like, why would you care about helping us increase our revenue, right? Ted and Davis care because it's our company and we want to grow it as much as possible. But like, I guess that's a two-part question, Ted. So how do you get your people motivated to chase more revenue, and why should they even care?
Well, I think we have to start with the most obvious answer, which is money. And I think a lot of mistakes that companies make, especially newer companies, and I'll isolate this down to home service industries or the home service industry. I think the biggest mistake is when you think about paying people well to do their job. I think for us, we felt like, hey, we pay our guys well. We pay a strong, really good hourly and or salary to these guys to make sure that they feel like they're getting a good paying job. And then on top of that, a bonus, which we used to do bonuses based on the overtime award as an example. Of course, there are tips that would come in. So all in, our guys were making really good money. And yet it took us a long time to come up with a better way that has already proven to be much more exciting, that has created drive that they've never had. In fact, I received a phone call this morning from James, one of our managers, basically saying, hey, here's the plan. We're going to make sure we hit this number that we had set for the month, which was a big number. And here's how we're going to do it. And it was a level of excitement and frankly, a conversation that I've never even had with James. You know, no one's ever called me. None of our guys have ever called me to strategize with me of how can we make sure we hit this number? Like we are really excited to hit it. Well, I think when you came up with the comp plan that rewarded the guys based on the revenue target, meaning, hey, if we hit this number, here's everyone's bonus. We're not just paying a bonus to the guy that works the most hours. We're not paying a bonus just to the manager. If we hit this number and it's a moderate number, if we hit this number, here's your bonus, and it's a small bonus. Everyone gets a little tiny bonus, but it's something, right? But if we hit this next tier, you get a bigger bonus, and everyone gets one, not just the managers. And then if you hit this tier and this tier, so I think having that really got their attention to where it instilled this level of drive in them that they had never had before, because now there was an incentive to really push and hit that bigger number. So, you know, I know that sounds like, you guys should have done that day one. And you're right, we should have. So I'm embarrassed that it took us that long to come up with that comp plan, but it is a much better plan. So I would start there. I would say, number one, it's money. How can you motivate your team to make more money without simply paying them a bigger salary or a higher hourly rate? And I think the idea of paying them based on the overall performance of the company is the most logical. So I'll stop there. That's number one. I have a couple more for you.
It's definitely the obvious one. And I think this is where you get into the weeds about, you know, what motivates different people is not always the same. Like I'm very money motivated, but I think what's probably core to everybody, whether they admit it or not, is like a competitive nature, but also just peer respect. You know, I think I sent you something earlier today where like, I was like, I like this idea. And it's just and you did a lot of this back when you were managing our sales team, our entry level sales rep team at the IT company, but just entering into like, or introducing this competition of like, it could be anything. You could gamify anything. How many calls somebody made that today? What was your outbound activity? How many appointments did you set? Who got the biggest deal registered today? Who closed the biggest deal? Who got the biggest PO? That's obviously more enterprise and corporate talk, but for like junk removal, who booked the most revenue on your truck today? Who did the most drop-ins with customers that, or prospects that aren't yet customers that we want to get in with? Who dropped into the most places, or Who was able to get the most tips, or who was able to get the most Google reviews. Like all of these things you can gamify, and being able to see it. Like Davis beat Ted today on the Google review challenge.
Yeah.
And putting that somewhere, like not just digitally, but like, and this is where you struggle a little bit with the type of business we're in. Like you have trucks out on the road. So it's not like everybody's in an office all day for 9 hours and you can walk by the sales leaderboard and just always see Ted's name at the number one spot, right? Like I'm walking by and ooh, that gets to me. There's different ways you can do it when you've got trucks dispersed all over the field. But to me, that tends to be something that really gets people trying to go after that North Star, which for us is revenue. And there's other things that you can put challenges around too, if you want to increase certain KPIs like profitability or, taking care in our business, taking care of your trucks, like, who's the safest driver type stuff. Like a lot of that you can put out there, but I think that's pretty common amongst humans in general. And you see it in a lot of organizations, something that is physically visible to most of the organizations somewhere, whether for us it sits in a truck, maybe we have a piece of paper or something, a cutout that says, James is the reigning champion for June for booked revenue in the month, or his truck averaged, $1,500 a day. Like that type of stuff that you can see and feel tends to like motivate people just because they want to beat you and they want to impress people. I've always been driven by, what does Ted think about the work I've done? When you were my boss in the corporate world, but also like here together as business owners, like anything I do, I'm always thinking, what does Ted think about this? Is he going to like this? Is he going to hate it? Is he going to think I was lazy? I don't want him to ever think I was lazy. Like that type of stuff just naturally drives me. It drives me in my family and my personal relationships. But I think I don't think that's unique to me. I think that's core in most people, who are decent people. But that's what I would comment on. It's like, it's tough to get employees to have a business owner's mindset, but we always want to get them as close as possible to that, knowing that they'll never achieve it because it's not their business. It never, unless you go and actually start your own, you'll never know what that feeling is like. So it's our job to pull as much as we can out of our employees while continuing to make them happy and ensure their cup is filled. But like, how do you do that? How do you get them thinking more like you as the business owner versus just another employee? And I think money obviously is one thing, but just general competition.
Yeah, I think those are incredibly good points, man. I think, and you touched on this, but I want to expand it a little bit. And that's really about culture. We have some of our guys that are really not money motivated when you really think about it. I remember one of the first employees I had up in Massachusetts when I started my wireless company franchise. I was trying to come up with these really gamification between my guys. And I had one that was just consistently just smoked everybody. He worked part-time. He probably worked at that time less than 30 hours a week because he was in college versus 2 and 3 other employees, depending on the location. And even with him being part-time each week, he would more than double anyone else's sales. And that was because he was just an animal. He would do what they weren't willing to do. He would go out there and I think I've talked about him before, but he looked like a young Ryan Seacrest. He was a stud. He would go out there and just, of course, flirt with all the girls that walked by. But even guys, he was so charismatic and friendly. Guys would always just go over there and start talking to him. And he would go out there in the middle of the hall area there in the mall and just start talking to people. And my other employees, they were just a little too embarrassed to do that. It was like they were great if you approached the cart, but they weren't willing to go out there in the middle of the aisle and just talk to people as they were walking by. And he would see someone walking by with a New York Yankees hat or a bag. And of course, in Boston, you're either a Red Sox fan or you're a dead man. And so he would be like, they would always go, Yankees suck. And of course, he would laugh, he would smile about it, and that'd get him talking. And he'd bring them over to the cart. Next thing you know, they're buying $200-300 worth of cell phone accessories. Just was astounding how good he was at that. But anyway, I'm trying to motivate these guys of, hey, I want everyone to be more like Russ. And I remember talking to one of the employees one day, and I was trying to figure out how can I motivate him to up his sales like Russ. And he was like, man, the truth is I'm just not super money motivated. And I was like, what do you mean? You're in sales. And I pay you guys really well. You make, especially back then, I mean, this was 22, 23 years ago. I was like, there's a lot of money that you guys are making. He's like, yeah, I mean, as long as I can pay my bills, I'm happy though. I don't get super excited about the extra money. my brain could not process what he was saying. Like, how can you not want to make more money if it's right here? It's so easy to do. But that's just not the way his brain worked. Ryan is like that. The Silver Fox is like that. So I've known guys that were like that. So what I had to do is go, okay, how do I motivate Jay to sell like Russ? If it's not money, what is it? You know what it was? And we did this at SMS, by the way. We did some of these things. Okay, if it's not money, what is it? Is it, do you want an extra day off? Is it a prize? Is it a literal trophy? You want bragging rights? Do you want something physical you can take home and show your fiance? Hey, look, I'm the top dog this month. I think the trick of a good leader / company is you have to, like Phil Jackson, you have to learn how to coach the individual. He couldn't coach Kobe the same way he coached Shaq because they were two different guys. Big egos, yes, phenomenal players, but they were different. And that's the way a good leader, a good business operates, is everyone is not wired the exact same. You and I are highly money motivated, but TJ may not be, right? Isaiah may not be. So what does motivate you, TJ? What if I buy you this new lightsaber? I found this new Star Wars limited edition lightsaber. Would that do it? He would lose his mind. Now,
Yeah.
the irony being, and I remember having this conversation with Jay, my employee, all those years ago. The irony being, well, TJ, if you make that bonus, you could buy 3 of those lightsabers, but it's not tactile. If I hand him that physical thing, that's what would get him so excited. So that is the key to a good manager. And so all that dovetails into what I started with, which is culture. Are you developing a culture that's going to keep your people motivated and instill that sense of drive? And that's the hard part, though. And that's where you need to care. You need to have that bone in you, that gene in you, that you actually care about your guys and girls, that you're willing to get to know them enough, not to necessarily go camping with them, but get to know them enough that you know what does motivate you. If it's time with your family, then I'm going to press that button. If it's the money, I'll press that button. If it's a vacation that you could afford if you hit that bonus, but if I need to physically hand you that plane ticket or that cruise ticket, whatever it is, that's the magic. Money, culture, and the last one that I wrote down here is communication. Matt, our manager, talks about this all the time, and he's right. But it's communication. How do you instill that drive, that sense of purpose, and the motivation that you want? You have to effectively communicate what the goal is. Right? So if you don't keep your guys focused on this is the goal, like James calling me this morning, hey, we want to hit that goal. Well, you've done a great job putting that goal in their heads and making it a sense of urgency to hit that number. That's what they need. They need great constant communication so that everyone knows, what are we rowing towards? Otherwise, we're just rowing. We need to know which island we're rowing towards. And I think that's the third component, is making sure that you have great ongoing communication with your team.
The example about the lightsaber with TJ,
It's true.
If I put myself in his shoes, and this is what I mean by like subconsciously, he may not even know why he likes that so much. It's the meaning behind the gift. I was talking with, coincidentally, James yesterday. I don't know if you saw the message I put out. I was like, this customer has done $32,000 of business with us.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it's been, 3 or 4 years that she's used us multiple times. Great client, never puts up a stink about price. We don't price gouge her. She just pays what we have to charge. She tips incredibly well. I was like, James, don't you think it? And this is my business. This is an example. This is the business owner's mindset versus employees' mindsets. Typically, no right or wrong here. It's just a fact. I'm sitting here thinking we should give her something back after all these years and after all these transactions, not just our services that she's paying us for, but do something to say, I really appreciate the business, and don't just tell it to her or, give her a slight discount on the next one. And I'm talking with James on the phone, and I'm like, what do you like? I think he actually called me. He's like, I was thinking she needs us next time tomorrow to do a haul-away, but she also needs us to move items from her place to a storage unit. I'm thinking I'm just going to, comp that or significantly discount it. I'm like, I don't mind the idea, but I don't think that's not what I'm going for. No. After all these years of communicating with her, seeing her on site, chatting with her over the phone, all that stuff, there's nothing that we can think of that that she kind of enjoys. Like, is it coffee? Does she enjoy like these little tchotchkes? Is she super into birds? Think outside the box, because what we're doing here, James, about thinking about this, if we can portray that we did this for her, meaning we put this effort in, that's what she will care about. Like, so if you know that she loves birds and you go and get her like this exotic bird book from Barnes and Noble, it may cost $10, $20. But the fact that you thought enough about her to
Yeah.
go and put that kind of effort in, not just, oh, I'm already doing a job for you tomorrow. Let me just discount this to show my appreciation. That's all well and good. But the fact that you maybe went to Barnes and Noble out of your way to go in the idea of just thinking about the idea that, you get into Christmas presents and family members, like we all know it, but we rarely do it. I'm that kind of guy too. Like I really suck at gifts, no matter how much I think about it. I never come up with I'll just give flowers or whatever. It's like, man, I put a lot of effort into this. You don't know how much effort I put into it, but what popped out were flowers. It's like, this is what everybody else gives. It's tough to relay your appreciation, but that's kind of, I guess, we're to bring that full circle with how that drives or motivates your employees. TJ really would. He knows that if he just pushed hard enough to get those bonuses, that money, he could go buy the lightsaber. But the fact that it came as a gift from you, or a, hey, good job, I wanted to get you this $20, whatever, however much it is, that he loves the gift. But the fact that somebody else acknowledged his effort and was and thought about what he likes and got him this thing, that's really subconsciously what he's appreciating the most, is just the acknowledgement. You and I had a colleague years ago who, this was his core. You need to pay him money to cover his monthly bills, but he's not money motivated. He is motivated by the work he does and somebody acknowledging it. I kid you not, to this day, I still know him. He won't say it outwardly, but I know that if somebody in the company just picked up the phone or put out an email to like a group of people that said, hey man, you worked your butt off on this deal and it would not have been possible without your expertise, anything along those lines, this guy, like, he's loyal to you for life if you just acknowledge his effort. And that's what, honestly, I don't think that's unique to him. I think that's what most people want. We all want good paying jobs, and we want to be compensated, and we want bonuses, and we want the tangible things that come with our effort. But what we really want is the acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And you and I probably don't do that enough with our guys in unique enough ways so they actually really understand it, right? We say thank you all the time, and we put out videos on our communication threads, but like, we probably need to do more of that. Just thinking outside the box to show people how much you really care publicly. But that's just one example that comes to mind. It's just the acknowledgement, like that to me is what really drives people. You'll never get the employees to fully, think through the business owner's lens. Gary Vee talks about it all the time. Like, he doesn't want that. They don't own the business. I can never expect you to think about this business or care as much about this business as I do, because you don't own it. It's great if you're committed and all that stuff. My job is to get the most out of you for the role that you've applied for or that we have you in, and help you, grow in your journey in your career. And if it means that you stay here or you go elsewhere, that's what my goal is to help you do, is to help you grow. And it's going to benefit me and my company in the meantime for however long you're here. But that's my goal.
Man, you're exactly right. I was just thinking about at SMS, where you and I worked together initially. To this day, I think one of the things that the old crew would say was the most fun, the most rewarding thing, the most memorable, what's it been, eight years or more, something like that, is just doing little things like having a T-shirt made with one of your faces on it with your most common saying. That was like the highlight for everyone, is to see, number one, who is going to be on the T-shirt, what's the saying going to be, what are they going to look like, and also like the awards, the Top Dog Award. Those things were met with so much excitement, more so than simply here's your money, because they expected that. But it was being able to go above and beyond. So I think you're exactly right, man. I think one other thing I would add is something that we've done that the guys have always loved. And this dovetails into culture, and really so does the communication part. But the other one is, when we have team meetings, we have a recap meeting every month. And I've touched on this before, but we have a recap meeting every month. Sometimes it's at a restaurant, other times it's at an Airbnb. And we normally do the Airbnbs when we've had a really good month. We've done tree houses, hobbit houses, houses on Lake Norman. We try to make it really fun and memorable for these guys. And that, believe it or not, is one of the things they also look forward to. I cannot tell you how many times James, TJ, and I think even Eric the other day asked me, when are we doing the Airbnb thing again? And the reason they love it so much is because it gives them a chance to actually take their time. It's not this rushed meeting like our last meeting at your house. The guys had a blast because they could play basketball, they could swim. It was more time together to just sit and relax and really catch up on family and all these other things that you can't do in the restaurant. When we're at a restaurant, the meetings are good, the food is good, but it's rushed. We feel like we need to get in and out because there's other people waiting and it's loud. So that's the last thing I would add as far as culture is that's a little thing you can do to also instill drive and motivation in your team is you can do those little things like Napoleon Bonaparte used to do. He'd buy his men little trinkets and people to ask him, like, why do you do that? And it was like, well, because grown men are just little boys that have just grown up. Everyone wants a toy. Everyone wants this thing, this tchotchke, as you say, that they can take home and show their wife or show their brother, their friend, hey, look what I got today at work. This company values me. I think that's really what it's about. We all want to feel valued and heard. So I think if you're doing those things, and there's more we could name, but if you're doing those things at its core, that's how you really instill that drive. The days where your employees want to leave, because every one of them have had those days, probably lots of them. These are the things that keep them here. It can't be about simply pay because they can always go somewhere else in theory and make more money. So why do they stay? Why do we have like zero turnover? And I believe it's because of these things. It's the way we treat our guys, the fact that they know we do care. And I think, that's really the biggest thing.
Yeah. Super easy to say, very difficult to do. Everything that we're talking about, like you and I know how much we care about our company and the people they're in. And we very much know that this would not be possible without everybody.
Yeah.
But how do you communicate and get that message across to the guys and the gals? It's really difficult. So I guess that's where we'll end it.
All right.
Message to the business owners, including ourselves: appreciate your people, but show them that you appreciate them. Think of unique ways. Put as much effort, I guess, into your internal customers, your employees, as you do your external, and you'll probably have a thriving business. So, any parting words, Ted?
No, that was it. I think that was a great episode. I hope it was helpful for at least someone out there. But we'll see you next time.
Bye.